Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a question that honestly feels like it belongs in a sci-fi novel.
Or maybe a philosophy class.
Right. And the question is this: is aging inevitable? Is it like a fundamental law of physics where things just fall apart? Or is it maybe just a technical glitch? A loss of information that we can, actually correct.
It's a massive question, and it really defines this whole era of biotechnology. To get into it, we're using a really fascinating stack of sources today. We've got the high-level theoretical genetics coming out of the Sinclair lab at Harvard.
Okay, so that's the why.
That's the why. And then to see how this stuff actually plays out in the real world, we're looking at the clinical protocols from the Morrell Institute for Anti-Aging Medicine in New Jersey.
So we're bridging the gap between the petri dish at Harvard and the patient on the Jersey Shore.
Precisely. And let's be clear, we're not talking about tanning salons. The mission for this deep dive is to get past the surface level stuff, the anti-aging creams, the basic diet advice. We want to understand longevity science. We're talking about reprogramming the body's software, fixing the energy failures that make you tired, and maybe understanding why your normal lab results might be hiding the real story.
I want to start with this central analogy that David Sinclair uses. It really changed how I visualize the whole aging process. He talks about a CD.
Right. For those of us who remember physical media.
The shiny discs, yeah. So he says, imagine the digital music on that CD is your DNA. That's the code. It's permanent. But as we get older, the CD gets scratched. So music skips, it stutters, maybe it just stops playing. But, and this is the key point, the song is still there. The digital code hasn't changed. The laser just can't read it because of the scratches.
And that is the core of the information theory of aging. The whole idea is that aging isn't the hardware failing. I mean, your DNA is incredibly robust.
We can read it from fossils, right?
Exactly. From thousands of years ago. The problem is the software. It's a loss of the ability to read the code. And if that's true, well, the logical next step is, can we polish the scratch?
Can we help the laser read the music again?
Yes.
Okay, so let's unpack that software component. In biology, this is the difference between the genome and the epigenome, correct?
Yes, think of the genome as the computer hardware, the digital code. It's the instruction manual with every possible instruction for your body. But the epigenome, that's the software.
The analog reader.
The analog reader. It's these chemical markers that sit on top of the DNA, and their job is to tell cells which genes to turn on and which to turn off. It tells a cell, you are a skin cell, so act like one, or you're a neuron, fire a signal.
So if the genome is the piano with all the keys, the epigenome is the pianist deciding which notes to play to make a song.
That is a perfect way to put it. And the Sinclair Lab's whole idea is that aging is caused by epigenetic noise. The pianist gets confused. They have this specific hypothesis called the relocalization of chromatin modifiers.
Okay, that's a bit of a mouthful. Can you bring that down for us?
It sounds super complex, but the mechanism is actually pretty intuitive. So your DNA breaks all the time from radiation, chemicals, even just breathing creates stress that can snap it.
Right.
When that happens, specific proteins, let's just call them the repair crew, they rush to the site of the break to fix it.
Okay, so far so good. The body fixes itself. That sounds like a good thing.
It is, usually. But here's the catch. These proteins also have a day job regulating genes, telling the cell what to be. When they rush off to fix a break, they leave their post. And if there's too much damage, they don't always go back to the right spot.
So the repair crew gets lost on the way back from the emergency?
Essentially, yeah. And over time, this creates noise. The pianist forgets where they were in the song. The cell starts to lose its identity. It forgets it's a skin cell. It doesn't die. It just becomes a zombie cell.
So in essence, sincere.
Right. It just sits there, pumping out inflammatory signals that make its neighbors sick. That confusion, that is the scratch on the CD.
They actually tested this with mice, didn't they? The ICE mouse experiment. I found this part fascinating because it wasn't just observation, it was, manipulation.
This is the proof of concept.
Yeah.
ICE stands for indicible changes in the epigenome.
Yeah.
They engineered these mice where they could create those scratches on purpose, distracting the repair crew without actually damaging the DNA.
And the result was pretty dramatic.
Oh, it was undeniable. The mice aged so fast. And we're not just talking about cellular markers. They physically looked old.
Yeah.
They got gray hair. They got frail. Their brain function just dropped.
Wow.
And it proved you could drive aging forward just by confusing the software. You don't even need to touch the hardware.
But the really mind-blowing part wasn't making the mouse old. It was what they did next. Because, breaking things is easy. Fixing them is the hard part.
And that's the polish. They found that by using specific reprogramming factors, they could basically reset the cell software. They could reboot it to a younger state.
And the mouse actually got younger.
It did. Vision returned, muscle mass improved, the gray hair reversed. They effectively reversed the aging process. It implies that a backup copy of youth is still stored in our cells. We just lose the password to access it.
That is incredible. It completely shifts the paradigm from just maintenance to actual restoration. But I have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
We aren't genetically engineered mice. Most people listening are just trying to get through a Tuesday without needing a nap at 2 p.m. So how do we bridge this high-level science to how we actually feel?
That is where we have to leave the nucleus of the cell and go to the engine room. We need to talk about the mitochondria. This is where the Morrell Institute's approach really comes into play. They treat the mitochondria as the body's CPU, the central processing unit.
I remember powerhouse of the cell from biology, but CPU implies it's processing information, not just fuel.
It's both. When your computer's CPU starts to lag, every single program slows down. Your heartbeat, your focus, your immune system, it all requires ATP, the energy currency made by the mitochondria. If you don't have the currency, you can't pay for the function.
The source from Morrell makes a point that really stood out. They say, when we feel fatigue, we usually just blame ourselves. We think, oh, it's a lack of discipline, I just need to push through. But they argue it's almost always a biological failure.
It's a hardware issue, not a willpower issue. They list 3 specific interconnected failures. The first is just energy production failure. This is the direct drop in ATP. As we age, the assembly line that makes energy inside the mitochondria, it just gets inefficient. Electrons leak out.
Leaking electrons sounds not good.
It's not. They create free radicals, which damage the cell even more. It's like a car engine, leaking oil and overheating. You're stepping on the gas, trying to work harder, but the engine just can't generate the horsepower.
Which leads to the second failure, hormonal signaling.
Right. And this is where people often get the cause and effect backwards. They go to a doctor, find out their thyroid is low, and they think that's the root problem. But often, the endocrine system is shutting down because there isn't enough energy to run it in the first place.
So the body is in power-saving mode, like when my phone dims because the battery's at 10%?
Exactly. Making hormones is metabolically expensive. If you don't have the ATP, the body prioritizes survival over thriving. It cuts power to the non-essentials, your metabolism slows, your motivation crashes. It's all a protective mechanism.
And the third failure they list is systemic inflammation.
Think of inflammation as a fire. It takes a massive amount of energy to put out a fire. So if your energy production is already low, you just can't resolve the inflammation. The fire just keeps burning. It's a vicious cycle.
This brings us to a specific molecule that seems to be the linchpin of this whole energy system. NAD plus HANA. It's everywhere in the longicity headlines. Sinclair calls it critical. Morrell offers it as a therapy. Why is this molecule so important?
If the mitochondria is the engine, NAD plus is the fuel line. Or, more specifically, it's the courier that carries electrons back and forth in that assembly line. Without NAD plus Ward, you literally cannot make APP. The engine just stalls.
And it also has a role in that CD repair job we talked about earlier, right?
A crucial one. Remember the repair crew? Those proteins that fix the DNA? They're called sirtuins. And sirtuins are NAD dependent. They literally eat NAD plus to function. So if you have low NAD plus NA, it's a double whammy. You can't make energy and you can't repair your DNA.
And I assume levels of this stuff don't stay stable as we age.
No, they crash dramatically. By middle age, you might have half the NAD plus you had in your 20s. The Sinclair lab has this mitochondrial oasis hypothesis, which suggests this loss of NAD plus is a primary driver of why our organs age and our memory slips.
Now, on the clinical side with Morrell, they make a very specific point about how to get more NAD plus in. You see supplements everywhere, but they favor injections. Is that just a clinical thing, or is there a scientific reason?
It's largely an absorption issue. NAD plus is a really fragile molecule. If you swallow a pill, it has to survive your stomach acid, then get processed by your liver. And if your gut is already inflamed, which for most people with fatigue it is, very little of it actually gets to your cells.
So the pill might just be expensive urine.
In some cases, pretty much. Injections or IVs bypass the gut and liver completely. They put the molecule right into circulation. It's about efficiency. If the goal is to reboot the brain and muscles, you want direct access.
Okay, so we have the theory, the scratched CD, we have the mechanism, the failing CPU, and the lack of NAD plus simolar. Now let's look at the application. We're moving our focus to the Morrell Institute. What's interesting is that this isn't a spa, but it's not a standard doctor's office either.
No, and that distinction is vital. Dr. Karina Yankiewicz operates on a philosophy of functional medicine. Her motto is, health is not merely the absence of disease, but the presence of peak biological performance.
That is a huge shift from how most of us experience healthcare. Usually you go to the doctor, they run a blood panel, and if you aren't actively dying, they say you're fine.
Exactly. Traditional medicine waits for the crash. Functional medicine asks, why are you trending in that direction? They look for the root causes. Toxins, gut health, those energy failures, before they become a named disease.
They have a program called the Lux Metabolic Reset. And looking at it, it says it shifts focus from the scale to the system. That feels like a relief to read.
That's the key phrase, metabolic refinement. We are so conditioned to think calories in, calories out. But if your mitochondrial engine is broken, starving yourself just adds more stress. You might lose weight, but you'll lose muscle and wreck your metabolism.
So they try to fix the engine first.
That's it. They figure out why the metabolism is stuck. Is it insulin resistance? Is it a cortisol problem? Once you fix the machinery, the weight tends to resolve itself as a side effect of just being healthy.
Part of that engine fixing involves something called peptides. I keep seeing this word pop up. BPC 157, CJC 195. They sound like secret codes or droids from Star Wars.
They do, don't they? But they're actually very simple. Peptides are just short chains of amino acids. Think of them as smaller, more specific proteins. Functionally, they're signaling molecules. They're just switches.
Switches for what?
For almost anything.
Yeah.
Your body naturally produces thousands of them to tell cells what to do. The problem is, as we age, we make fewer of them. So peptide therapy is just introducing those specific signals back into the system to remind the body what it's supposed to do.
Can you walk us through a few examples? What would a patient actually take these for?
Sure. Take BPC 157. It's incredible for repair and inflammation. If you have a nagging injury or gut issues, BPC 157 signals the body to accelerate healing in that specific tissue. It basically calls the repair crew to the job site.
Okay, so that's the repair signal. What about CJC 1295?
That one interacts with the pituitary gland to encourage the natural release of growth hormone. It's often used for fat metabolism, literally telling the body, hey, burn fat for fuel, spare the muscle.
And there was one called MOTSC.
MOTSC is fascinating. It's a mitochondrial peptide. It basically mimics the effects of exercise. It helps regulate metabolic balance, prevents insulin resistance. It's like sending a signal that says, we're exercising, helping clear glucose from the blood, even if you're sitting still.
It really connects back to Sinclair's idea of reprogramming. We're not forcing the body to do something unnatural. We're just sending the young signal that the body has stopped sending itself.
Precisely. You are cutting through the noise with a clear instruction.
Now, there's an interesting convergence here. We're talking about hardcore biology, but the Morrell Institute also talks a lot about regenerative aesthetics. Is this just marketing, or is there a real biological connection?
It's not just marketing. It's where the whole industry is heading. You simply cannot treat the surface effectively if the battery underneath is dead. If you have high systemic inflammation, your skin will look tired and gray. No amount of cream can fix a mitochondrial failure.
They offer procedures with some intense names. The vampire facelift.
The names are dramatic, sure, but the science is purely regenerative. These procedures use your own blood. They take it, spin it down to concentrate the platelets and growth factors, that's PRP, and inject it back into specific areas.
So instead of injecting a foreign filler, you're injecting your own repair team.
Exactly. You're not just filling a wrinkle with a gel. The growth factors are triggering your body to grow new tissue, new collagen, new blood vessels. You're using your body's own repair kit to rejuvenate itself.
They also mention precision aesthetics, like the 8D lip technique.
That speaks to the artistry of it. But even their approach to, say, anti-wrinkle injections is different. They talk about European-style training muscle dynamics rather than just freezing the face solid. It's about balance and function.
The takeaway seems to be that aesthetic results are just the visible symptom of internal health.
Right. You're fixing the house foundation, not just painting the shutters. If the foundation is solid, the paint stays fresh a lot longer.
I want to move to the frontier now. The stuff that sounds like it shouldn't be possible yet. The Sinclair lab is challenging a massive dogma in biology about women's fertility.
This is potentially one of the most significant breakthroughs in women's health. For decades, the absolute rule has been that women are born with a finite set of eggs. When they run out, that's it, menopause.
And Sinclair is saying that might be wrong.
Their work with ovarian stem cells suggests that the ovary is capable of regeneration. They found that these stem cells, which are still there in adult ovaries, can theoretically be reactivated to produce new, fresh oocytes.
That would change everything.
It implies we could delay menopause or reverse infertility. It's applying that same reprogramming concept, waking up silent genes, to the reproductive system.
And looking at the Morel offerings, it seems like they are trying to normalize the conversation around intimate wellness as a medical issue.
Yes, and that is so critical. They use technologies like Emcella Chair that uses electromagnetic energy to strengthen the pelvic floor. It's like doing thousands of Kegels in a single session. And they offer the O-shot and P-shot using those same growth factors to rejuvenate sexual function.
It's treating sexual health as a vital sign.
Because it is. If the blood flow and nerve function in those areas are declining, it's a canary in the coal mine for the rest of your vascular system.
Yeah.
Maintaining that function is a strong indicator of overall longevity.
There's one last concept from Sinclair that sounded like a treasure hunt. The secretome.
It does sound like a Dan Brown novel, doesn't it? But it's very real. Remember all that junk DNA, the part of our genome that doesn't seem to code for big proteins?
The stuff we thought was just background static.
Well, Sinclair's team is finding it's not static. It's hiding thousands of tiny peptide-coding genes. They call this the secretome. These are small, natural peptides our bodies make that we didn't even know existed. They believe this could be the future of medicine.
So our bodies might already have the instructions for the perfect antibiotics hidden in our own blood.
Exactly. We just have to find them and figure out what they do. It's a completely untapped frontier of biology inside our own cells.
So let's bring this all together. We started with the scratched CD. Our DNA is the music, aging is the scratch, and the theory says we can polish it.
Then we looked at the mechanism, the mitochondria, the CPU that starts to lag when it runs out of NAD+ and gets bogged down by the fire of inflammation.
And we saw how a clinic like Morel is taking that science and applying it today, using metabolic resets, peptide signaling, NAD+ injections, actually fixing the system, not just covering up the symptoms.
It connects the dots between the Harvard lab bench and the treatment room in New Jersey. And the philosophy is remarkably aligned. David Sinclair says, humanity can do better. Dr. Ayan Kalavici says, timeless aging isn't accidental, it's engineered.
It's such a powerful shift in perspective. Instead of just accepting decline as inevitable, we're starting to pick up the tools to engineer our own path.
And that raises the most important question for you listening right now. If aging really is just a loss of information and energy, and we're finding the tools to restore both, how does that change the way you plan the second half of your life?
That is the question. Are you just managing the decline, or are you ready to polish the disc? Thanks for diving deep with us.
Until next time.